Hello, good afternoon and good morning and good evening, wherever you are joining us for this workshop. Thank you very much, really, for joining us, SungHee Oh from the Korean Public Service and Transport Workers Union, KPTU, where she's the Director of International Affairs of that union. And thank you, SungHee, for a very important and valuable contribution to our course on the campaign of KPTU to bring the care homes back into public hands and public management. Lots of interesting comments under your video lecture, and we are going to use today to actually engage with the participants that have shown interest on this topic and provide the space for them to discuss with you directly, ask questions, and provide comments. So really, really thank you very much. And thanks to everyone for joining. SungHee, can we perhaps just start with you providing some key highlights of this really amazing campaign from KPTU and perhaps also some key takeaways that you think are important and that could be relevant also for unionists elsewhere?
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, where you are. I'm SungHee Oh, as introduced. I'm not expert on care or healthcare sector, but I'm as an international director of the KPTU, I have to deal with many different issues in different sectors, and care and health is one of my priorities in my work. So let me briefly introduce about the lecture. Okay, so in Korea, home care has traditionally relied on women's unpaid labor for many, many years, for over 5 decades. And as the population is rapidly aging and the need for care increases, the government adopted the Act on Long-Term Care Insurance for Senior Citizens, ALTCI, in 2007 as a solution. But however, when the government introduced the ALTCI, it only guarantees the state's responsibility for financing and administration with tax revenues and premiums paid by individuals, leaving the provision of care to the private sector in the market, often with relaxed qualification requirements for care facilities and service providers. So as a result, about 99% of care services are provided by the private sector. Evidence from many countries shows that in the absence of strict regulation to the private sector, the quality of care provided by for-profit private companies has deteriorated, and the working conditions of care workers have worsened. In response, KPTU and other social services organizations formed a joint task force to fight the marketization of social services and organized the first national march of care workers in 2010. Since then, the KPTU, together with trade union confederations and political parties, women's organizations, service users organizations, and others, has formed a network called the Public Care Alliance, which campaigns on the urgency of public control of care services and the importance of workers' rights, as well as legislative campaigns for the establishments of the Public Agency for Social Service, PASS, run and managed by regional and local government. These ongoing efforts led to the passage of the PASS legislation in 2018. And while the public sector still accounts for only 1% of all care providers, 15 PASS centers have been established by 2022. Research by the PPIP, a research unit of the KPTU, and others has shown that the PASS system has enabled local authorities across the country to provide care services directly and has contributed to poverty reduction by increasing public control over care services and reducing out-of-pocket expenditure for users. PASS is also expected to provide a strategic basis for reorganizing the structure of care services towards public provision and to improve the working conditions of care workers by ensuring that care workers receive decent wages and working conditions. So that's it for my video lecture, but I'd like to conclude with some developments and the threats of the dismantling of public care following the election of a conservative government in May 2022. So initially, the PASS system was promoted as a strategic position to strengthen the publicness and professionalism and quality of care through the direct operation of service providers and the direct employment of care workers by the state and the local government beyond the limits of the private sector-centered provision structure. However, with the change of state government to a conservative one in 2022 and the change of governors in some local governments, including Seoul Metropolitan City, where the PASS system is facing difficulties due to the government's marketization of care before it has even been properly settled. So political pressure from private care providers and conservative political parties, which have been strongly opposed to the PASS system when we campaigned the passage of the PASS legislation like six years ago. And the current government's strong austerity policies have led to a reduction in state responsibility for public services, including care, and a shift it to the private market. In particular, the current government has targeted social services for marketization and is attempting to neutralize the PASS system with plans to strengthen the existing private-oriented provision structure without any plans to expand public infrastructure. In response, the KPTU and others are continuing our efforts to protect and strengthen the role of the PASS system in response to an aging society, while carrying out research projects for legislative campaigns to build a system of public-centered community-integrated care and organizing home care workers. Because there was a general election in April, and opposition party won like 60% of the seats in the National Assembly. So we try to seize this moment as an opportunity to legislate more like a broader and more strong legislation to protect, even to expand public care system in Korea. That's about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Really, really interesting developments. It's open for questions and comments that you may want to make to SungHee. Meanwhile, please, if possible, do turn on your cameras. It's really difficult to speak to black boxes and we don't see your faces. Please do add your names and the countries so we also understand where you're from. And yeah, open. Who would like to make the first question? Yes, Jordan. Of course.
Hi, good morning, Alira. Hello, SungHee. Thank you for your presentation. I'm very interested to hear more about how the job conditions of the workers in the private and public sector differ. I imagine pay is very different, but I'm also interested in the public sector workers' entitlements with regards to a pension or extended benefits such as health insurance.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Jordan. I think we first respond to Jordan, SungHee, and then we take Jokonaya, okay?
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you for the
Jokonaya, can we just let SungHee respond first to this one and we come right back to you, okay?
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So the working conditions for care workers in the PASS facilities, most of care workers, they get paid by hourly based wage, but then their working hours only recognized during their work, not like so lots of care workers, they have employment contract with the dispatch company. So even though they work 8 hours per day, but the dispatch company usually exempt commuting hours. So even though they their total working hour is 8 hours, but they excluded like 2 hours of transportation, things like that. So unlike those care workers who have employment contract with dispatch care private care providing company, the past care workers, they have direct employment contract with the PASS, and they get paid salary based wage, and their working hours is recognized as like 8 days. So their working hours recognized, including transportation, hours, and they can enjoy paid time off, things like that. So they have much better working conditions compared to care workers in the private sector. But then, as I explained, the conservative mayor came in Seoul metropolitan government 2 years ago, and Seoul metropolitan government decided to cut operating budget for PASS. So then the management in the past, they have attempted to reduce working hours, and they have attempted to change care workers' wage system from salary-based monthly, wage system to hourly based wage system. So they're still fighting to protect their rights and their working conditions. And in terms of public sector's benefits, so like if you are government employees, then government employees have a separate pension system, but then we have national pension scheme in Korea. So if you're employees, it doesn't matter whether you work for the public companies or private companies, as long as you are an employee, then you are qualified to get pension benefit when you retire at 60. But then pension benefit starts at 65. So there's 5 years gap. So there are lots of debates going on to extend retirement age up to 65. And also we have national health insurance. So those past workers also are covered by national health insurance scheme. And like the pension scheme, if you are an employee, then as long as you maintain your employment status, then you can get national health insurance benefit. Even if you are self-employed, they have different different like premium. So also those self-employed, they are also covered by national pension scheme and national health insurance service as well. But then public sector workers, we have hundreds of public institutions in South Korea, but then even though they can negotiate with the management, like wage negotiation and collective bargaining agreement negotiation, things like that. But then the central government, every year the central government they issue like guidelines for wage and working condition and things like that. So even though the management like said, if you are employees in like maybe public pension corporation, and the management and trade union, they both agreed to increase workers' wage maybe by 5% or 6%. But then if the agreement exceeds the government's guidelines, then the agreements mean nothing. So the government have been interrupted labor management negotiations. So that's why the KPTU filed a complaint against the Korean government like 2 years ago. Because those guidelines from the government actually intervened labor relations in terms of wage negotiations and collective bargaining agreement negotiations, things like that.
Thank you very much, SungHee. Japonia, do you want to make your question or comment?
Yeah, it's a question. Thank you, Edira. Thank you for the presentation. I'm not sure about the condition in North Korea, but my concern is if you check in the developed countries now, most of people are migrating from developing countries to go and offer care service as care service workers. What is the situation in Korea in terms of migrant care workers, and what are their conditions and the effects to the already established system in terms of public service care? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Brian, we'll come back to you after SungHee response. Thank you.
Yeah, so thanks for bringing up the migration issue. So actually the conservative government, Korean government and Seoul metropolitan government both announced that they will import care workers from different countries like 2 years ago with very low wage, like half of the national minimum wage. We already had more than 100,000 or 200,000. I don't remember the exact number, but we already have lots of migrant workers in manufacturing sectors and agricultural sectors. But then the government see the care sector as industry, as a market. So one of the reasons for the government to bring those migrant workers to the care sector is to lower working conditions of care workers. The Korean care workers. We already have lots of Korean Chinese care workers, like long-term care workers who work at home care facilities. We have lots of Korean Chinese care workers, and compared to the income they used to make in China, even though they get paid less than minimum wage, they still make more money they could make in China. So they kind of injured their poor working conditions and wages. So that's why we try to unionize those Korean Chinese workers, but most of them they deny to join the union because they need to maintain their working visa, so they don't want to make any trouble with the government policy or anything like that. So while the central government and Seoul metropolitan government attacking the past system, at the same time, I think they use migrant workers as a means to achieve their plan. Like if the government able to lower wages and working conditions for care workers in general, then they think they could bring more private companies, because at the moment we have very small dispatch companies who are operating their businesses in the care sector. But the government plan is that they want to bring like big corporations like Hyundai or something, Samsung, like big corporation to the care sector. So they need to lower working conditions, wages as much as they can. So then those private sectors probably show more interest. So that's the whole plan. So the government is using those migrant workers to succeed their plan. But I think that's not going to work, because as soon as we noticed the government policy early this year, we started working together with trade unions in the Philippines, because Philippines is one of the country the government mentioned. So we organized like a joint online conference together, and my union and other migrant workers union in Korea, we held press conferences many times, and we also wrote like a series of articles, what the problem is with migrant workers in the care sector, things like that. So it seems like at the moment it seems like that the government hold their plan for a little bit, but then these are the times that when we discuss about minimum wage for next year. But so those many care workers, they usually earn about minimum wage level income. So like migrant worker issues and care workers, and all together, we don't know how it's gonna work in the future, but we watch very carefully, and we work together with those trade unions in the country where they try to send workers to Korea, and trade unions and civil society organization in Korea. We work together to deal with these migrant workers issues.
Thank you very much. Brian, is there anything you would want to clarify further, or was that fully responded? How do you feel?
Yeah, I think thank you, SungHee, for responding to that question, because I think the Philippines, one of the countries with a lot of migrant care workers, especially going to Korea because of the affinity of the country to Korea. And maybe I think, what do you think about maybe a regional level, bargaining with the care sectors among the region to maybe to ensure that there is no race to the bottom among countries sending migrant workers to Korea, for example?
What do you mean by regional conference, like in the Asia Pacific region, or
maybe for example, the care workers in Southeast Asia, Philippines, maybe Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia. So they will bargain collectively to set that when they are if they will go to Korea, they will still get the same level of working conditions.
Yeah, so this kind of unfortunately, Korean labor movement haven't deeply involved in those issues yet. Although we've been organizing migrant workers for over 2 decades, from early 2000s, and we have very close relationship with trade union confederation in the Philippines, like Central and KMU, and and I'm not sure if if there is still Nakaisa, the coalition or not. But we have very close relationship with trade union movement in the Philippines, and we also have good connection with trade unions in Thailand. But the thing is, there was huge conflict between Korean workers and Korean Chinese workers in the construction sector about wage. Because in the construction sector, the company they want to hire Korean Chinese workers. In that case, they can hire the workers with lower wage. So there's competition between Korean construction workers and Korean Chinese construction workers. So this Korean construction workers trade union, they try to unionize those Korean Chinese workers so that workers don't need to compete each other, and workers can work together in solidarity. So it worked for several years. But then 2 years ago, there's there's a government attack on trade union movement. Since then, lots of Korean Chinese workers they withdraw their membership from the trade union, and so there's there has been history of conflict between migrant workers and Korean workers in the Korean labor movement, and also in the agriculture sector, we have lots of workers from the Philippines and maybe Cambodia or Thailand or things like that. But the thing is, those sectors, if migrant workers come to Korea for those sectors, their working visa, agricultural workers' working visa, is not managed by labor ministry. So they can come to Korea because there's MOU between local government in Korea and the sending country's government. So the regulation in terms of labor rights and working conditions is much lower than when the central government control. So there are so many issues we have to deal with. So I think the KCTU, my umbrella union, we organize exchange program between young workers. Young workers in the Asia Pacific region. So we invite young workers from different countries every year. So maybe we can organize those exchange programs for care workers in different countries. So yeah, I think we can find some opportunities in the future, but it's very shame to say that, but Korea is kind of closed country, so there are lots of conflict and debates going on in the labor movement, how we need to work with migrant workers in the trade union movement. So I think Korean trade unions and Korean trade union activists need to openly debate about the situation you mentioned, and so we'll find a way. I don't know.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. I mean, interesting question, because industrial relations are typically national level institutions. So thinking of doing something, even some sort of negotiation beyond national borders. I mean, it's already problematic to do it within national level, and Philippines is a case in point, but one can imagine how difficult could that be. But even if it doesn't take the form of a collective bargaining agreement, I think the idea that SungHee is actually putting forward seems to be interesting to at least start with some exchanges in the sector. So thanks a lot for that. Fish, do you want to make a question?
Yes, response and then question. Yeah, quickly. Sorry, I'm late because many hectic, many busy work in union. So a little bit about myself. I'm Fish. I'm the regional coordinator for the International Domestic Workers Federation for Asia, IDWF. I was the organizer in before in the HKCTU before it was disbanded, organizing domestic workers and migrant domestic workers. So first of all, I want to mention that we are actually in the region, we are facing a serious issue of care crisis. So we organized in end of April, 26th of April, a national consultation on care in the Philippines. And we have domestic workers, local domestic workers, migrant Filipino domestic workers, care workers joined online, and community care workers, hospital care workers in the Philippines at the conference. It was a very good conference in the sense that we have faced similarity in the sense that the care is not recognized, and care workers in general face a lot of problem in the decent work. So especially from the hospital workers of the Philippines Union, they mentioned and they asked a lot about qualification framework, talking about how their qualification can be brought abroad so that they can work in overseas. And also because of many Filipino workers went abroad, and then the hospital is in deep labor shortage. So and in East Asia, I'm talking about Hong Kong, Taiwan, Japan, South Korea. We have the world lowest birth weight. We have only 0.83, I think, but the normal rate is 2 point something. So meaning we are facing a serious aging population, and that's why the South Korea government last year, they proposed to take the example of Hong Kong and Singapore to have migrant domestic workers to solve the aging population with cheap salary. But of course, we have alliance formed with MTU and the domestic workers organizations and NGOs who are able to stop the lower wages. So I think the first batch of migrant domestic workers will soon come from the Philippines to South Korea. So this issue of the care crisis is really something that if our brother from the Philippines talking about regional exchange, is really an issue on the care crisis, which is like a vicious cycle. Actually in the region in Asia, South Korea is better if we talk about care policy. Because we have done some care policy mapping in 8 economies in Asia. We have found that at least South Korea has some government care policy, meaning the government recognized the need for the government to take the responsibility of the care in for the citizen. But of course, there are also implementation problems, but I'm talking about in the rest of the region, that kind of government responsibilities to take care of the people is basically non-existent. So what does it mean? It means the government shifts the responsibility to private households, and then private households hire domestic workers, care workers, which is in cheap labor, which very, very low wage and no protection at all. And yeah, so I think that is important that we have to have exchange. Although if we talk about young workers, that is something that we have to think about because in East Asia, the birth rate is so low. Yeah, my question is about the self-employed workers that you mentioned, SungHee. What is the definition, labor definition of the self-employed workers? So because there has been several recent legal changes in European directives, in Australia, etc., when we have the discussion on the gig economy, that these workers who are seen as self-employed somehow is the scope of employee relationship is expanded. So has that, what is the definition, number one, in South Korea, and has there been any discussion about this issue? Second is, we have heard from Spain, there has been a trend for privatization of the public care, and that has led to more platform workers in the care. So, and I know that in South Korea, you have like 3 major platform companies who dispatch care and domestic workers to private households. So do you think this is already something happening like in Spain, or do you think not yet, but it can be something that can be happening? And what has been the union's discussion on that? Yeah, thank you very much.
Please unmute, SungHee.
So yeah, regarding the definition of self-employed workers in Korea, we are still fighting to gain recognition of disguised self-employed workers. So like those platform workers, like delivery drivers and truckers, and freelancer writers for the media or for movie or television programs. So self-employed workers in Korea means like outsourced workers who receive direct orders and control by the agent companies. So they are actually workers for the agent companies, but agent companies deny those outsourcing workers as their employees. So the Korean labor movement tried to revise the Labor Standards Act and trade union rights law to expand the scope of employees to those disguised self-employed workers. But those laws were introduced in the National Assembly like 2 or a year ago, and those amendments laws were passed in the National Assembly, but then the current president exercised his veto right. So we need to start over again once the new National Assembly will be formed next month. So yeah, that's how. But then during the former government, they made amendment to the industrial accident insurance law to cover those disguised self-employed workers by the industrial accident insurance. So former government kind of tried to make those self-employed workers to be covered by industrial accident insurance law and social insurance benefits. But then the current government, they're on employer side, so I don't see any chance for the government to expand the scope of employees to disguised employed workers. Regarding the 3 major platform companies in Korea in the care sector, I think the Korean trade union movement hasn't recognized or analyzed the situation yet. So we are worrying about those platform companies to enter the care sector in the near future, but we haven't heard any report from care workers. So we don't have much information about those platform companies in the care sector in Korea.
Thanks very much, SungHee. Somebody else would like to ask SungHee something? You can also put it in the chat box. Meanwhile, perhaps SungHee, I think one of the questions that came when people were registering for the workshop, which really speaks to this new vision, if you like, that the KPTU embarked on when it came to the question of the care sector. So the question comes from Jordan, and I think it speaks to that question, that what do you feel accounts for why the KPTU took a position that home care services should be publicly delivered? So when did this decision about remunicipalisation, if you like, or bringing them back home, what inspired that decision?
So in 2007 or 2008, it was the time when the Korean trade union movement started focusing on organizing care workers as one of trade union strategies, because we have seen care sector has been growing so faster after the government introduced Long-Term Care Act. But the government only cared about financing without having planned to. So the government hadn't really thought about how they deliver those care service to the people in need. And after the long-term care insurance was introduced, we had seen lots of small private care providers only went after money because they get paid by voucher issued by the government. So that was the time the KPTU and other social movement groups decide to organize those care workers, because as other comrades already mentioned, Korea is the country that has the lowest fertility rate, 0.7. So and during the COVID-19, we had seen that those past care workers, how those past workers did their jobs to take care of those people in need of care services. So over the 10 years, we learned the importance of public care service. So that's how the KPTU started focusing on organizing care workers. But then I think with the government change, PASS system is dismantled. So I think we need to change our strategy to organize care workers, because we thought those public agency for social service, PASS, could be our platform to organize care workers. and can be platformed to expand public care system. But then with the conservative government, everything is under threat. So we are discussing at the moment to change our strategy on how to organize care workers. So we are thinking about creating, like incubating, like association of care workers, so that we can organize more like care workers outside care homes or care facilities. So then we have like we can organize like broader care workers nationwide. Then once we have certain number of care workers in our union, then we can demand like direct negotiation with local government or central government to discuss about working conditions and wages, or national standards for care workers or things like that. So we are discussing at the moment about our strategy to organize care workers.
Yeah, thank you very much. Very interesting. There is a question from Kevin. Kevin, do you want to make the question directly?
Yes, thank you for giving me the floor. I'm actually facing a little bit of connection problems. That's why I'm not able to turn on my videos. So first, thank you for this inspirational fight from KTPU. So what I want to know is that you've been fighting for, let's say, the work conditions of the care workers, but what in terms of the service being delivered in the public hospitals and that in the private care? Because when we talk about being human, we tend to move to private because of the service. So I think that while we are focusing on going to give a betterment for the care workers, I think that we should also focus on the service that is being offered in those sectors. So has there been any kind of like negotiation about the service, whether it is of good quality in public or it is better in the private sector? Because if we think as human, we will tend to move towards where we are getting a better service. So I think that this issue should have also been addressed. Thank you.
So if you read the PSI and KPTU report on Korean case, we actually carried out several survey regarding users satisfaction, and there are high satisfaction of service from service users who receive service from the past. So that's why during our fight against the Seoul metropolitan government to protect past system, we succeeded form a coalition between KPTU and Past Service Users Association. So we've seen very high rate of satisfaction of service users compared to people who have care service from the private facilities in every care, like child care, elderly care, support for the disabled people.
Yeah, thank
you.
Sorry.
Yeah. So I think the care workers' working conditions and wages are strongly related to the quality of care service. So that's why we try to balance those two. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, SungHee. And I think you're making that point also in the video lecture, because one of the reasons for why KPTU stepped in was exactly also, or why KPTU's campaign even took more steam, was in the context of the COVID crisis, where lots of deaths happened in the private care homes, and that there were continuous reports of neglect of particularly disabled people and people with special needs and so on, that their needs were not being met in the private care. So please, everyone, I strongly encourage you to really look at the video lecture carefully, because there are many important insights from that video. We have a few minutes left, so is there somebody who has any question that you would like to ask directly SungHee? I think it's a unique opportunity, and SungHee is joining us from South Korea, where it's already almost 11 p.m. of the night. So we are extremely grateful for her to actually make time at this late hour of the night. Any final question that somebody would like to? Yes, Jordan, please.
Thank you very much, SungHee. I'm very interested by your story because there are some interesting parallels to organizing happening in Canada that I learned about a few years ago in the care sector, and in particular with home care workers. My question is about a comment that you made regarding the government's strategy to encourage consolidation in the care sector, hoping that large corporations would step in instead of having many small operators. So related to this idea, I wonder if your union might not actually welcome that development. I wonder if organizing workers who are employed by large companies might be a way of trying to more easily create a pattern. If there's fewer employers, maybe it's easier to threaten work stoppages and to gain advantages at the bargaining table. One of the big challenges I imagine you must face is if there's a large number of small establishments, you don't really have leverage with any given operator that it impacts the other agencies. And related to this, I wonder if you've considered trying to align the bargaining schedule so that all the collective agreements expire at the same time.
Yeah, so yeah, we had thought about that. Because like you said, there are too many small, private care providers. So with the PASS, we have 15, PASS facilities nationwide. So we dreamed about, having collective bargaining agreement negotiation at the same time, things like that. But unfortunately, it didn't work very well because there are only 3 or 4 PASS facilities that have trade unions. So we are thinking about, because those large corporations haven't entered in the care sector yet, so we changed our strategy. Like if we organize, more care workers, home care workers, and if like in the Seoul city, so if we organize, certain number of care workers in the Seoul city, then we can plan, or we can request direct negotiation with the Seoul metropolitan government, because I heard about that, in Canada, Nova Scotia, there is trade union and state government negotiation to set wage for care workers. I think I found that is very interesting for us, because public sector unions in Korea we have been demanding direct negotiation with the government for many years. We haven't succeeded yet, but for care sector, there are so many care workers who haven't been unionized yet. So if we were able to succeed organizing, those care workers with certain number, maybe we can think about demanding direct negotiation with the local governments, because those local governments who have the funding for public care facilities. With the past system, we also demand community-based integrated public care center as well. So I think the Nova Scotia model probably would work for us, I think. Is it enough?
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you. I just thought one of the interesting developments I observed in Canada was how one union coordinated the bargaining at many small establishments. So they sought to have some kind of benefit of simply being a union member, to encourage workers at small agencies to go ahead and unionize, even though it did not mean better wages. And they did this with a strategy that they understood might take 10 years. So many workers saw very relatively poor or not much benefit to being a union member at the outset. But what the union did was coordinate the bargaining such that all the contracts expired on the same date. And then they told the establishments, okay, just negotiate with us at a single table.
Okay. So that's, we call it in Korea, that's industry level negotiation. And like you suggested, if we have like large corporations into the care sector, we can do we can use those tactics to fight the those large corporations. But I am not but I don't, but for us that's not going to happen soon. So at the moment we are thinking about having direct negotiation with the local government, so that we can set like working condition and wage standard for care workers. So that's like negotiation between the trade union and the government. At the moment, that would work better. It's that if that's happening, because the large corporations seem not have that much interest coming in the care sector yet. But once that happens, I think your idea will be great for us to use. Thank you for your suggestion.
Yeah, thank you very much, SungHee. We are at the last minute. If there is any urgent question, you can make it now. Otherwise, if not, it's already 11 o'clock there. I felt terrible, SungHee. Really, really thank you so much for joining us and for sharing such valuable insights. Thank you, everybody, for joining the workshop. And tomorrow we are going to, and for the very interesting questions, and tomorrow we're going to discuss again care sector, but this time in Europe, and we have the case of Switzerland. So it will be also an opportunity to actually kind of compare trade union approaches to the same care crisis, because when it comes to the crisis, the characteristics are quite similar to what we see in South Korea. So thanks again, and have a wonderful rest of the day for those of you that is still there.